The universe holds secrets that have been guarded for millennia. Whispers of ancient knowledge, once powerful enough to shape civilizations, now lie dormant, hidden in plain sight. We are about to uncover one such secret, a text so profound, so revolutionary, that its very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about spirituality and magic. This isn't merely an old book. It's a living echo from a time when the divine was not a concept, but a presence, a force directly accessible. Imagine a world where individuals could ascend beyond mortal limitations, commune with celestial beings, and even influence the fundamental fabric of reality. This is the promise and the terrifying power contained within the Chaldean oracles. For centuries, this sacred wisdom was revered by philosophers, mystics, and even emperors. Yet somehow it vanished from common knowledge, relegated to the dusty shelves of arcane scholarship. Why did such a pivotal work disappear? What truth did it reveal that was deemed too dangerous, too potent for the masses? The answers might just reframe your entire understanding of human potential and our connection to the cosmos. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's get started. The text we're talking about almost no one has ever heard of, despite its immense influence on Western esoteric traditions. It's called the Chaldean Oracles, a name that itself sparks curiosity. Just saying it aloud evokes images of ancient Mesopotamia, mysterious rituals, and profound cosmic insights. But why has this foundational work been almost entirely erased from popular consciousness? It isn't a long, sprawling tome like some ancient scriptures. Instead, it exists as a series of poetic fragments, potent verses that feel less like prose and more like direct divine pronouncements. These aren't human musings. They claim to be direct communications from a higher source, dictating pathways to enlightenment and power. This immediate, revelatory nature sets it apart from almost any other ancient text. Imagine trying to piece together a magnificent mosaic from scattered jewel-like shards. That's the challenge and the allure of the oracles. Each fragment, though seemingly disconnected, hums with an unnerving coherence, pointing to a vast, intricate system of belief and practice. What sort of people could possibly have given birth to such an extraordinary spiritual technology, and how did they come to possess such profound knowledge? This leads us directly to understanding who these mysterious Chaldeans truly were. The name Chaldean itself conjures images of ancient Babylon, astrologers gazing at star-filled desert skies, and wise men predicting the fates of kings. Historically, the Chaldeans were a Semitic people who lived in Mesopotamia, famously associated with powerful dynasties and sophisticated astronomical knowledge. Critically, Chaldean became a byword for a class of astrologer priests skilled in divination and the interpretation of celestial omens. These weren't just simple fortune tellers, they were practitioners of a complex sacred science. Their understanding of the cosmos wasn't just observational, it was deeply spiritual, interwoven with their theology and ritual practices. They believed the movements of planets and stars were direct manifestations of divine will, offering blueprints for earthly events and pathways to higher consciousness. This level of cosmic literacy was unparalleled in their time. However, the Chaldeans, connected to our oracles, are not quite the historical Chaldeans of Mesopotamia. The oracles emerged much later in the Roman Empire, around the 2nd century AD. The name was likely adopted to lend an aura of ancient authority and esoteric legitimacy to the new teachings, tapping into the widely respected reputation of Babylonian wisdom. So, who then truly penned these enigmatic verses, if not the original Chaldeans? This brings us to the mysterious authors whose identities have been debated for centuries. The true authorship of the Chaldean oracles is shrouded in tantalizing mystery, a puzzle that adds to their allure and esoteric weight. Tradition attributes them primarily to two figures, father and son. Julian the Chaldean and Julian the Theogist. While Chaldean, in their name, served to invoke ancient wisdom, These individuals lived and taught within the vibrant, intellectually charged atmosphere of the Roman world, specifically during the reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Julian the Chaldean, the Elder, is said to have been a philosopher and magician, revered for his prophetic abilities and profound understanding of the divine. His son, Julian the Theogist, carried on his father's legacy, further developing the mystical system and codifying the practices necessary to enact the oracle's teachings. Their exact biographical details remain scarce, adding to their legendary status. Their identities are not just academic curiosities, they are central to understanding the oracle's claims of divine origin. Were these men merely conduits for higher forces, transcribing dictated truths, or were they brilliant synthesizers, weaving together existing philosophical and mystical threads into something entirely new and powerful? This ambiguity is part of their power, suggesting a direct link to the divine even as human intellect shaped the expression. This unique blend of ancient influence and contemporary philosophy hints at a fascinating fusion of faiths and ideas. The Chaldean oracles are not a standalone revelation. They represent a breathtaking synthesis of diverse philosophical and religious traditions. This fusion is one of their most remarkable and enduring characteristics, reflecting the complex intellectual landscape of the Roman Empire, where ideas traveled freely and often merged in unexpected ways. Imagine a spiritual melting pot, where the best minds attempted to reconcile conflicting worldviews. At its core, the oracles draw heavily from Platonism, particularly its later Neoplatonic developments. The idea of a transcendent, unified divine principle, a hierarchy of spiritual beings, and the soul's journey back to its divine source are all distinctly Platonic. However, these Greek philosophical concepts are not merely adopted, they are transformed, infused with elements from other profound traditions. There are undeniable echoes of ancient Persian religion, particularly Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on dualism, the cosmic struggle between light and darkness, good and evil. This moral clarity, combined with complex angelology and demonology, gave the Platonic framework a new, more dramatic intensity. Additionally, Egyptian magical practices and even some obscure Jewish mystical elements might have played a role, adding layers of ritual and invocation. This rich tapestry created something entirely new, offering a structured path for the soul's ascent, often described as a ladder to the divine. Central to the Chaldean oracles is the concept of a hierarchical cosmos and a detailed methodology for the soul's ascent through its various layers. This isn't just passive contemplation, it's an active, deliberate journey, often described metaphorically as a ladder to the divine. Imagine an intricate spiritual infrastructure designed to guide human consciousness from the mundane earthly realm to the loftiest celestial spheres. At the apex of this hierarchy is the One, or the paternal intellect, the ultimate source of all existence, pure, transcendent, and unknowable in its entirety. Below this supreme principle are various intermediary deities, intelligences, and cosmic forces. These beings are not merely abstract concepts. They are accessible, and through specific practices, one can commune with them, learning their secrets and drawing upon their power. The oracles outline a precise order of invocation and purification, suggesting that one cannot simply jump to the highest realms without first cleansing and preparing the lower aspects of the self. Each rung of this ladder requires specific knowledge, rituals, and a profound inner transformation. It's a challenging, arduous path, but one promising unparalleled spiritual advancement. This active engagement with the divine hierarchy leads us directly into the controversial practice known as theurgy. Is it magic or worship? The practice at the heart of the Chaldean oracles is theurgy, a term that immediately sparks debate and curiosity. Is it a form of high magic, a way to compel divine forces to do one's bidding, or is it a deeply spiritual act of sacred worship, aiming for communion and purification? The oracles present theurgy as both, blurring the lines that later traditions would try to rigidly establish. For the Chaldean theologians, the goal was not to manipulate the divine through crude spells. Instead, it was about aligning the human soul with the divine order of the cosmos, mirroring the celestial hierarchy within oneself. Rituals, invocations, and specific offerings were not seen as ways to force gods, but as pathways to invite their presence, to purify the practitioner, and to elevate consciousness. The belief was that by vibrating in harmony with higher beings, one could ascend and even participate in the divine creative process. This made theurgy distinct from common sorcery, which often focused on earthly desires or harmful intentions. Chaldean theurgy aimed for intellectual and spiritual perfection, for the deification of the human soul. Yet, the actions involved chanting, lighting lamps, using specific stones or herbs, bore a superficial resemblance to popular magical practices, leading to much later misunderstanding and condemnation. This potent blend of philosophy and practice fascinated generations of thinkers, particularly the Neoplatonists, who became utterly obsessed with its teachings. The enduring influence of the Chaldean oracles is perhaps best exemplified by the Neoplatonists, who became utterly obsessed with these texts. For prominent figures like Iamblichus and Proclus, the oracles were not just ancient poetry, they were divine scripture, second only in importance to the works of Plato himself. These philosophers dedicated entire commentaries and treatises to unraveling their cryptic meaning, seeing them as direct revelations from the paternal intellect. The Neoplatonists found in the oracles a concrete, ritualistic pathway to achieve the mystical union with the one that their philosophy described. While early Neoplatonism, espoused by Plotinus, emphasized intellectual ascent through contemplation, the oracles introduced the crucial element of theurgy. This ritual dimension provided a practical, tangible method for purification and ascent that transformed Neoplatonic practice. It was no longer enough to just think about the divine. One had to actively engage with it through sacred acts. This obsession led to the oracles being meticulously studied, debated, and integrated into the very fabric of later Neoplatonic thought. They became a cornerstone for understanding the cosmos, the soul's journey, and the nature of divine interaction. However, despite this deep reverence, the oracles themselves never existed as a single, compiled volume, leading to their unfortunate fate of surviving only in fragments. One of the greatest ironies and challenges of studying the Chaldean oracles is that they have survived only in fragments. Unlike other sacred texts that were meticulously copied and preserved as complete works, the oracles exist primarily as quotations embedded within the writings of later authors, particularly the Neoplatonists and early Christian polemicists. Imagine trying to reconstruct an epic symphony from scattered notes found in the margins of other composers' scores. This fragmentary nature makes understanding the full, original scope of the oracles incredibly difficult. Much like an archaeological dig, scholars have painstakingly collected these scattered verses, attempting to piece together the original sequence and context. Each new discovery of a quotation in an obscure text can shift our understanding, adding another small, precious piece to the puzzle. These fragments are often terse, poetic, and highly metaphorical, hinting at a much larger, more complex cosmological and ritual system that is now lost to us. They are like glimpses through a keyhole into a magnificent but ruined palace. This partial survival has only increased their mystique, transforming them into a kind of sacred enigma. What these fragments do clearly reveal, however, is a profound fascination with celestial phenomena, offering messages from the stars. The Chaldean oracles are steeped in a cosmology that views the stars and planets as more than just distant lights. They are living intelligences, direct manifestations of divine will, and sources of profound spiritual messages. For the Chaldean theurgists, the cosmos was a vast, interconnected network, and the celestial bodies were integral to understanding both the divine plan and the human soul's journey. This is far beyond mere astrological prediction. It's a spiritual navigation system. Each planet, each constellation, was believed to embody specific divine qualities and energies. By studying their movements and understanding their symbolic meanings, practitioners could tune into these celestial frequencies, aligning their rituals and their souls with cosmic rhythms. This deep connection to the heavens wasn't about determinism, but about conscious participation in the divine dance. The oracles contained specific instructions and invocations linked to these celestial powers, enabling the practitioner to draw down divine influences and achieve higher states of consciousness. It was a rigorous form of cosmic literacy, where understanding the sky was paramount to spiritual elevation. This intricate system of engaging with heavenly bodies was deeply connected to the concept of purification and the ultimate ascent of the soul. A central theme woven throughout the Chaldean oracles is the absolute necessity of purification as a prerequisite for spiritual ascent. This isn't a casual recommendation. It's presented as the fundamental gateway to higher states of being and communion with the divine. Imagine trying to climb a mountain while burdened with unnecessary weight. Purification is the act of shedding that spiritual load. The oracles prescribe not just physical purification rituals, but also, and more importantly, ethical and intellectual cleansing. The soul must be purged of earthly desires, lower passions, and ignorance to become a fitting vessel for divine light. This involves rigorous self-discipline, contemplation, and adherence to specific moral principles, all designed to refine the inner self. Only through this systematic purification can the soul begin its arduous journey of ascent through the various cosmic spheres, ultimately aiming for reunion with the paternal intellect. Each step upwards requires a renewed state of purity, allowing the soul to shed its material encumbrances and embrace its divine essence. This ascent is often framed in terms of understanding the fundamental dualities of the cosmos, particularly the binary opposition of light versus matter. The Chaldean oracles present a distinctly binary cosmos, structured around the fundamental opposition of light versus matter. This isn't just a philosophical concept. It's the very fabric of reality and the central tension informing the soul's journey. Imagine the universe as an epic struggle, with two primary forces constantly interacting and defining existence. Light in the oracles represents the divine, the paternal intellect, pure intellect, spirit, and ultimate truth. It is the source of all being, untainted and beyond corruption. Matter, on the other hand, is generally associated with the lower realms, with darkness, limitation, and the terrestrial world. It is not inherently evil, but it is the realm of separation, illusion, and the entrapment of the soul. The human soul, caught within the material body, bears sparks of this divine light, yet is weighed down by its material container. The entire purpose of Chaldean theurgy and the path of ascent is to liberate these divine sparks, to purify the soul from its material attachments, and to guide it back towards the unblemished light of the Father. This stark dualism informs every aspect of their cosmology and practice, raising the question of why such a profound text ultimately became either forbidden or merely forgotten. The fate of the Chaldean oracles, moving from venerated scripture to obscure fragments, raises a poignant question. Were they forbidden or simply forgotten? There's evidence to suggest both, contributing to their eventual relegation to the footnotes of esoteric history. In the emerging Christianized Roman Empire, any non-Christian religious or magical practices were increasingly viewed with hostility. As Christianity consolidated its power, texts like the oracles, which offered alternative paths to divine communion and involved pagan rituals, became targets. The practices of theurgy, with their invocations of multiple deities, clashed fundamentally with the monotheistic doctrines of the new dominant religion. This suppression by authorities definitely played a role in their decline and the destruction of many complete manuscripts. Yet a more subtle factor could be simple oblivion. As the Neoplatonic schools began to wane and the intellectual landscape shifted, interest in these intricate philosophical and ritual systems diminished. Without active communities to preserve and transmit them, even profound texts can fade from collective memory. Regardless of the exact reason, its legacy was largely pushed into the shadows, only surviving within the hidden currents of Western magic. Despite being largely lost to mainstream religious and philosophical discourse, the influence of the Chaldean oracles didn't vanish entirely. Instead, its essence went underground, becoming a crucial, though often uncredited, source for various traditions of Western esotericism and magic. Imagine its wisdom as an invisible river, flowing beneath the surface, feeding countless springs and streams. During the Renaissance, when there was a resurgence of interest in ancient wisdom, scholars like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola encountered the oracles through Neoplatonic writings. They recognized their profound mystical insights and incorporated elements of Chaldean cosmology and theurgy into their own complex magical systems. Figures like John Dee, centuries later, also drew upon these ancient sources. Even though direct references to Chaldean oracles might be scarce in later magical grimoires, the underlying principles, the idea of a hierarchical cosmos, the power of sacred names, celestial alignments, and rituals for divine ascent, can be clearly traced back to this foundational text. The oracles provided a coherent, powerful framework for understanding how magic could be more than mere superstition. It could be a spiritual science. This enduring, if veiled, presence inevitably drew the attention of critics and skeptics, eager to denounce its origins and practices. Throughout history, the Chaldean oracles, like many esoteric texts, have faced a steady stream of criticism and skepticism. For early Christian apologists, the oracles were seen as either demonic deceptions or mere pagan superstition, direct rivals to the authority of biblical scripture. Their polytheistic leanings and the practice of theurgy were anathema to the burgeoning monotheistic worldview seeking to establish its dominance. Later, during the Enlightenment, when reason and empirical observation became the hallmarks of intellectual inquiry, the mystical and ritualistic aspects of the oracles were often dismissed as irrational folly. Scholars, unable to verify the claims of divine revelation or magical efficacy, viewed them as remnants of a less enlightened age, unworthy of serious academic consideration. The idea of invoking divine intelligences through rituals seemed primitive. Even within esoteric circles, some critics questioned the authenticity or true efficacy of the theurgic practices, suggesting they were either misguided or simply symbolic, rather than literally effective in summoning divine beings. This ongoing skepticism has contributed to their obscure status, fostering doubt about their value and importance. However, in our modern world, there's a growing curiosity, leading some to ask, is it time for the return of theurgy? In an age marked by a search for deeper meaning and a growing disillusionment with purely materialist paradigms, there's a burgeoning interest in ancient spiritual technologies. This leads many to ponder. Is it time for the return of theurgy as outlined in the Chaldean oracles? Could these ancient practices offer a vital pathway for contemporary spiritual seekers? Modern practitioners and scholars are re-examining the oracles not as ancient superstitions, but as sophisticated systems of psychological and spiritual transformation. They see theurgy as a method to consciously engage with archetypal forces, to cultivate higher states of awareness, and to find personal meaning in a complex world. The rituals, once seen as literal attempts to manipulate gods, are now sometimes interpreted as powerful symbolic acts designed to reshape the practitioner's inner landscape. This renewed interest suggests that the core questions addressed by the oracles, how to connect with the divine, how to purify the soul, how to ascend beyond mundane existence, remain profoundly relevant. The potential for a modern reinterpretation and application of these ancient principles is immense, inviting us to consider them with fresh eyes. This exploration is not just about understanding history. It's about searching for the divine code itself. Our journey through the Chaldean oracles reveals much more than just an ancient text. It uncovers a profound historical effort to decipher and implement a divine code, a hidden set of instructions for spiritual ascent and communion. This code was meticulously designed to navigate the cosmos, purify the soul, and ultimately to achieve union with the transcendent paternal intellect. The very fragments that remain challenge us to reconstruct this lost knowledge, to understand the intricate cosmology and the powerful theurgic practices that once captivated the greatest minds of antiquity. It is a testament to humanity's enduring quest for meaning, for connection to something greater than ourselves, and for unlocking our highest potential. The oracles represent a radical claim that the divine is not distant, but directly accessible through disciplined ritual and profound inner transformation. Unearthing this wisdom is not merely an academic exercise. It's an invitation to explore the spiritual technologies of the past and consider their relevance for our present and future. The Chaldean oracles remind us that some truths are too powerful to be fully contained, too influential to ever be truly forgotten, always whispering their secrets to those who dare to listen. Make sure to subscribe for more religious videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.